and inflationary gap. This inflationary gap is the gap which comes when the demand is more and the supply is less, and that point is called inflationary gap. Comes from the word inflation because the prices have been rising due to the increase in the demand of a commodity, and that commodity is not being supplied in relation to the demand which is being increased. Investment multiplier will increase your profits. Paradox of thrift says go for thrift, that is spend more so that to bring about equilibrium, and it says that involuntary unemployed are those who are wanting to work but have no work. Voluntary unemployed, there is work but there is no willingness. Full employment, when everybody is employed. Excess demand, when the demand is more than the supply, leading to inflation, called as the inflationary gap. Now the most interesting part of the chapter, excess demand and deficit demand. Excess demand you have seen when the demand is more and the supply is less. Deficit demand when the demand is less and the supply is more. Then excess demand leads to inflationary gap, and whereas the deficit demand leads to deflationary gap. Now there are certain measures which have to be adopted by the government in order to curb both the excess demand as well as the deficit demand, and let's see it together. As far as the fiscal policies are concerned, we take in first of all the expenditure policy. In the expenditure policy, if there is increase in demand, then it should reduce the expenditure. But if there is deficit in demand, it should increase the expenditure. That is, if the demand is more, then reduce the expenditure. Bring down the expenditure to bring down the demand. But if the demand is less, increase the expenditure so that the demand increases. Second is the revenue policy. That is the method by which revenue is collected, that is to say the taxes collected by the government. In this, if the demand is more, then the government should increase the revenue. But if the demand is deficit, if it is less, it should decrease the taxes. Here if it increases the taxes on the people in the revenue policy, when there is excess demand, people will have less money, so they will buy less and the demand will come down. And if the demand is less, then the government should decrease the taxes so that there is more money in people's pocket and they buy more. So this is the balancing act when there is excess demand and deficit demand. Then public borrowing. Public borrowing, that is to say, which we take from the people, and this increases, or this should increase when there is excess demand and should decrease when there is less demand. Again the factor remains the same. When it is more, it's going to have less part to spend, and when it has less part, the demand will come down. These were the fiscal policies.